Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days for today's video. It's going to take us to around the 19th of August, so we're heading into the second half of the month with the week to 10 day updates now. So it looks as though the weather is going to be rather changeable in the next week to 10 days. I think it's probably setting up a north-south split, so it means that for northern parts of the country you'll probably have quite unsettled weather at times, actually. Difficult to ascertain how unsettled it will get, but it could be quite unsettled actually for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. But for England and Wales, the Azores high, not in the position it was through most of this summer, bringing very hot conditions. But nevertheless, probably still close enough to keep many of the rain-bearing weather systems away to the north, keep it reasonably dry and warm down in the south. Possibly some days very warm into the mid to upper 20s Celsius. But as I said in the video yesterday, we're not seeing a return to excessive heat, certainly within the next week to 10 days. It's actually quite cool today and it's wet in the southeast, so we'll start off looking at that. So we're going to begin with the latest observations from XC weather. This is the latest temperature observation. So you can see it's so much cooler compared to what it was a few days ago. Our maximum temperature today is, at the moment, is just 20 degrees. That'll probably go up a little bit more, maybe to 21 or 22, but certainly a lot cooler compared to recent days. So let's come down through the Midlands. For example, we've got Churchill Orford at the moment, as I'm doing the video, at just gone 12:30 in the afternoon, just at 17 degrees. Wittering is at 16 degrees, going down to London Heathrow, where it is raining. It's cloudy and overcast, so temperatures there are just 16 degrees at London Heathrow at the moment. That's one that you can turn around to 60 to 61. Fahrenheit, go further south. London Gatwick is at just 15 degrees. Headcorn Aerodrome is at 15 degrees. Gravesend at 15 degrees. A few days ago, just 2 or 3 days ago, these web stations were up over 30 degrees. So a really dramatic change in the weather. If we go further north, we see that Warkop in northern England, they're just at 16 degrees. Shawbury is at 18 degrees, so a little bit warmer there. Keswick at 17. Go further north to Aboyne on the eastern side of Scotland, 17 degrees there. But in the western part of Scotland, to Altby is at just 13 degrees. Aban Airport just at 12 degrees, so really cool, dare I say, autumnal in the far northwest of the country, and certainly a lot cooler elsewhere too. Belfast is just at 15 degrees Celsius. So if this summer has been too much for you, if it's been too hot, then well, I hope you're enjoying the change, because it certainly is a lot cooler and fresher now. And also say wet down in the southeast. It's been a very, very dry summer this year. That's been the other big talking point, really, of how dry it's been. Been a very few days where we've had outbreaks of persistent rain. We have had hit and miss thunderstorms, of course, but very few days with persistent outbreaks of rain. But we've got the rain in the southeast at the moment. You see some quite bright colours there through East Anglia down to southeastern England. Outbreaks of persistent and fairly heavy rain. It does become patchier through into the south and the southeast Midlands, so it's been mainly dry there, a few light patches of drizzle, but nothing much. The really wet weather has generally always been around and to the east and northeast of London through East Anglia and down to southeast England. That rain will probably be on for the rest of the afternoon, gradually pulling away to the North Sea, but it'll probably take until this evening to get that rain away from the east coast of East Anglia and southeast England. Many other parts of the country are mainly dry, but we have got these heavy showers up in the north. There's bright colours in there indicating some very beefy showers across northwest Scotland coming down into Northern Ireland. Those are going to continue for the rest of today as well. So, obviously, the temperature has lowered quite a lot, and that is now having an effect on the central England temperature. So this is the latest from Hadley. We currently stand provisional for the first week of August, very hot at 19.4. So it has been a very hot opening week to August, to say the least. That's an anomaly of nearly 3.5 degrees above average. That's come down quite a bit, though, in the past couple of days. So when we looked at this earlier in the week, that was standing at around 19.9. Never quite got to 20. Degrees, but it was standing at around 19.9, I think, this, when we looked at it around Monday. So we're now at Thursday, and it's come down over half a degree. It's going to come down further over the next few days. So by next week, it will be firmly into the 18s. And then we'll have to see where we go from there. Will we stick in the 18s and have our first 18 Celsius CET month since, CET August month since August 2003? Or will we continue to lower this and lower it down into the 17s? That will be the big question as we go through the next couple of weeks. I think it's something like 18.2, but we've got to get by the end of the month to have the hottest summer on record, to beat 1976. So at the moment, it's far too early to say where that CT is going to finish up. We're going to have to wait and see how that plays out over the next couple of weeks. Right, 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from Penn State University, looking at the ECMWF first of all. These are the mean flowcharts for the next 7 to 10 days' time. So this takes us into the second half of August. We go to around the 19th of the month with this one. Balloons extrapolating to below average heights, which is low pressure, and orange and red extrapolating to above average heights, which is high pressure. Look what the ECMWF is doing. It looks really quite unsettled indeed in the 7 to 10 day time frame, with below average heights centred just to the north of the country and above average heights pulling out into the middle of the Atlantic. The black lines are the jet stream, and they're coming through the country rather like that. So that looks really quite unsettled indeed through the second half of August. You would expect showers or longer spells of rain to be coming in with that, and quite cool as well. The air is coming from the northern Atlantic through the UK with the flow and the jet. So that's cool and unsettled conditions there from the ECMWF in the 7 to 10 day time frame. The GFS looks like this. It is very similar, but there's a major difference. We've got still that area below average heights to the north of the country. Again, quite a deep trough around Iceland. But the difference is this area of above average heights just to our south. So this is the north-south split I was talking about at the start of the video. Certainly for the north, you would expect unsettled conditions with the jet stream and that area of low pressure. But for the south, this ridge, whilst it isn't in the same position that we had it through most of the summer, so it's not in a position to be producing heat wave conditions, very hot conditions, it is still close enough to the south and the southeast to be warding off a lot of the energy with this trough of low pressure. The jet stream with this is still generally to the north, although it is affecting Scotland and Northern Ireland. But for England and Wales, you would expect a reasonable amount of dry and warm, potentially at some days very warm type conditions. So that's a classic north-south split that we've got going on there, with drier, warmer conditions in the south and the southeast, cooler and more unsettled conditions in the north and the northwest. Certainly both models, though, are indicating the Atlantic has got more buoyancy to it than it has had really at any point through this summer. So as we go into, we can almost say we're at late summer now, I think. Certainly by the 15th of August, we'll be able to say we're at late summer. So as we're going in towards, let's say, late summer, it does look as though the Atlantic is starting to get a little bit more buoyancy to it. And whilst the ridge, the Azores Ridge, might be able to carry on giving relatively dry and warm conditions to the south, certainly to the north, it does look more unsettled. This may be signs of where things are going to go as we get into September. We are just seeing a few hints that possibly September could be a rather more unsettled type month. But of course, we'll have to wait and see about that. It's a long way off. GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles are looking like this. We're looking at Newcastle upon Tyne today. Someone asked me to have a look at Newcastle. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Newcastle. We're cooler than average at the moment, as we just saw the temperatures at XC weather. They are really quite cool indeed. Going a bit warmer though over weekend. So that situation from Saturday through to Sunday, that is associated with quite a deep area of low pressure though. So although the temperature, or the upper air temperature, will be lifting up, it is also associated with quite a lot of wet weather. Now as we go through the course of next week, we find that the temperatures, if anything, are a little bit on the warmer than average side, the upper air temperature. So not a cold period coming up, but again not as hot as it has been, not going up to sort of 10-15 Celsius at 850 HPA, so a bit milder than average. That will be most noted at nights, I suppose, where for northern parts of the country it's likely to be quite cloudy and wet on a lot of nights and fairly warm temperatures. By day, the temperatures may be a little bit suppressed if it's cloudy, overcast and raining. And rain is the more striking point about this ensemble, really. It's relatively dry for the next 2 or 3 days, but as we get through to Saturday, Sunday and then on to next week, we have got some really quite big rainfall spikes there. It does look as though things could be turning quite wet. Maybe this is for Newcastle, so for the northern parts of the country, it does look as though things could be turning quite wet. If we have that ridge from the Azores affecting the south, then it will be drier down in the south, but for northern parts of the country, yes, we could be looking actually at quite a wet couple of weeks coming up. Temperature anomalies are looking like that, and still coming out a little bit milder than average, a little bit warmer than average, not as hot as it has been. The hottest anomalies to average are being pushed over onto the eastern side of Europe, very substantially warmer than average there. In the northwest, it does actually look as though the temperatures are still above average, yes, but not as hot as they have been. But even so, still coming out a bit more than average. Again, for northern parts of the UK in particular, that could be most noted at nights, where the nights could be rather cloudy and wet. Precipitation anomalies look like this from the 9th to the 17th of August. And they're coming out average to a little bit wetter than average, actually. So obviously a change is taking place here, even for southern parts of England and Wales, where, of course, we've got the Azores Ridge quite close, like we saw on the height anomaly flowchart. Even there, the precipitation anomaly is no better than around average, and for northern parts of the country, and also for Ireland, it is a little bit wetter than average for those areas. So a change is afoot here, I think, within the broad sort of weather pattern. So this is how the GFS is looking for Sunday, and we find low pressure is moving in from off the Atlantic. Now, the movement of this low pressure has been delayed to some degree. It was supposed to come in on Saturday. It now looks as though it's coming in mainly on Saturday night into Sunday morning from the west, and then moving across the rest of the country through the course of Sunday. Could get quite a lot of heavy rain on Sunday. In the far southeast, we're actually putting up some very warm air. So if the rain doesn't get to East Anglia and southeast England until late on in the day on Sunday, it could turn very warm with temperatures into the mid to upper 20 Celsius. But of course, under persistent heavy outbreaks of rain, temperatures will actually be quite cool, even if there's a humid feel. That's how Monday's looking next week, and we're into a showery type scenario on then at that point. And then we go through to the middle of next week, and it's a good reflection of what we saw on the height anomaly flowchart. We've got quite a bit of low pressure up to our north. These low pressures are deepening with a more active jet stream pushing through to the northern part of the country. But for the south, the Azores High is still sending up its ridge. So for southern parts of the country, a reasonable amount of dry weather with this ridge of high pressure from the southwest. But for the north, you are more prone to those areas of low pressure and influence from the jet stream. That's through to the second half of next week. And again, you see the broad pattern is continuing for southern parts of the country. Again, we've got this ridge building through from the Azores into France and Central Europe. But for the north, again, more influence from the jet stream and these areas of low pressure than we have had at any point through this summer. You've probably got to go back to kind of April or March to find as much influence as this from the jet stream and from these areas of low pressure around Greenland and Iceland from the north. So that's what's going on there. It is a good deal more unsettled for the northern parts of the country, but for the south we're still just about holding on to that high pressure and very warm conditions. We head up to day 10 and we still keep this north-south divide going, or perhaps better to say northwest-southeast divide going. So again, for the northwest, we've got these areas of low pressure around to our north. To the south and southeast, we've got the ridge continuing to be building in. It won't be giving heat wave conditions, this, because it's not getting up to Scandinavia. The pattern through most of the summer has been to have the ridge from the Azores from there, but also a big ridge over Scandinavia. And so you would have that large area of high pressure in that sort of position. And what that does, it allows very hot air to be pumped up from the south and from the southeast. That's why we've had such a hot summer. In this situation, with the Azores high just ridging to the south, yes, it will be warm. Possibly some days will be very warm with enough air from France to provide that to the south, but for the north it will be cooler and more unsettled. But the main thing is not going back to that very excessive heat that we had a few days ago, and then back to the rest of the summer. Then going to extended range, and if anything, the GFS wants to build the ridge up a little bit more as we go into the final week of August. That's how the jet stream is looking by the end of the GFS run. We're still broadly in this idea with low pressure to the north and high pressure across the south and to the south of the country, with the flow and with the jet stream coming through rather like that. So that's where the jet stream is, right at the very end of the GFS run. It's closer to us. It's going through that sort of zone, still just about to our north, but possibly you wouldn't want to rule out the chance that that could start to move southwards as we head into the final stages of August. Then we've got the ECMWF, and again, quite unsettled conditions over the weekend with low pressure heading in from off the Atlantic. We go through to next week. Now, we saw on the height anomaly charts that the ECMWF is more unsettled. It has less of an influence from that ridge from the Azores high. So that's how Thursday looks, for example, where this area of low pressure in a week's time is quite a bit closer to us than it is on the GFS. The jet stream is also a bit further south, so that could be bringing rain even down into the south of the country, actually through the middle part of that stages of next week. And then we go into the extended range with this ECM. It does look a lot more unsettled. There is that ridge from the Azores high, but generally it's a little bit further south to us than it is on the GFS, which means that we do have more influence from the low pressure and from the jet stream, which are coming through the country rather like that in the extended range with the ECM. So that would bring rain probably down even into the south of the country. And it is pretty cool as well, this. The air is coming off Greenland with the flow from the Atlantic. So it's just generally a cooler, more unsettled situation with the ECM compared to the GFS. It's very difficult to say which one is right, but I think probably the GFS will be closer to this. I think for the south we probably do, for a while anyway, continue to have a reasonable amount of influence from that high pressure from the Azores. So it could be relatively warm and dry in the south, more unsettled in the north. The ECM looks a little bit too progressive with the Atlantic. It looks a little bit over the top with that Atlantic flow. But we should wait and see. It's a very subtle difference between the two, and it's not impossible that it may turn out that the ECM is correct. We're all going to get some rain over the next few days, though. So these are the 5-day accumulated precipitation forecast charts based on the GFS run from the weatheroutlook.com. You see all places are forecast to get rain. Wettest conditions, as you expect with this, are going to be in the north and west, where some parts of northwest England, North Wales, again up to kind of 50 millimetres of rain in the next 5 days. That's a couple of inches. But you'll see even down in the parts south and southeast, we know we've got rain today, even through the south-southeast, we're seeing precipitation accumulations going up to around 20 millimetres through parts of the Midlands, central southern England, over to East Anglia when you take into account today's rain and then the following rain that's going to be coming over the weekend, start of next week. We're going at kind of like 30-40 millimetres. So all places getting rain in the next 5 days. I mean, the next 10 days, it turns even wetter in the north. So northern parts of the country, Scotland, Northern Ireland, northwest England, the next 10 days, accumulated precipitation is going up to kind of like 75 millimetres in some places. That is 3 inches of rain. Not that much, though, down in the south and southeast compared to the 5 days. So again, that's just the influence from the high pressure from the Azores, keeping the south mainly dry once we get today and Sunday's wet weather out of the way. Much of next week looks dry for the south. Based on the GFS, the ECM, of course, is a lot more unsettled. Right, just a bit of fun. I thought I'd throw this in at the end. So this is the CFS V2 700 millibar height anomaly flowchart for the winter of 2018-19. Got to get used to saying winter 2018-19, of course. So we find that we've got the above average heights building to the south. We've got below average heights up to the north. At the moment, CFS V2 is going for a very westerly winter there. It's going to be a mild winter, wet, and possibly, for the north anyway, wet and windy winter in the south. Probably a drier winter will be expected on that kind of scenario, but the main thing would be a mild winter there. We've got the wind coming in off the Atlantic, southwesterly, well and truly established. So a mild zonal westerly winter at the moment being forecast by the CFS V2. Very, very early days on that. So if you want a cold winter, don't be too concerned, don't be too alarmed about that. Finally, just to say that if you've enjoyed today's video and you would like to consider making a donation, then you can do so through the Gazworthies Patreon page. So this is it. This is our Patreon page for Gazworthies. You can come here and sign up to Patreon, and by doing that and pledging a monthly donation to us, you will become a patron for Gazworthies. We've got 26 patrons so far. A big thank you to all of the patrons for Gazworthies. It's helping us to pay for our website and for the content. You'll get a shout out in the video. You'll get a thank you from Gazworthies for becoming a patron for Gazworthies, unless you would rather not have one, and of course then you just give us a little note and we'll just thank this anonymous patron. And that kind of thing. The other way you can give us a donation is through PayPal. So I'll just show you the Gazworthies PayPal page. And again, let's go through to that. This is it. This is Gazworthies PayPal.me page. So if you'd rather just give a one-off donation, then all you have to do, if you've got a PayPal account, is just send whatever donation you would like to Gazworthies. And again, it is helping us to pay for the website, to keep all of the content completely free of charge, and to develop the website as well. So a big thank you to all of the patrons, all of the donors for Gazworthies, and thanks so much to all of you for doing that. Right, there's probably going to be another update for this weekend's festivals coming up for you later on today. That'll probably be with you around 6 o'clock this evening, something like that, so come back for that then. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.